Okay, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, tattoo blowouts. The good, the bad, it's all just bad. I was going to say the good, bad, ugly, no, just bad stuff. Let's jump into it.
What is a blowout and what are some good ways to fix it?
So blowout is when your silly artist goes too deep and pierces too many layers of skin, and that causes the ink to spread. And sometimes it can be super minor, but sometimes it can be like really bad. And ways to deal with it is
So first off, by saying that a tattooer goes too deep doesn't really hit exactly what a blowout is. Okay, yes, oftentimes you'll see a blowout when someone really cranks in the needle, hammers it in, and it's just like, that's what happened. They went in too deep, that's all there is to it. A lot of times you'll see sometimes that you come at an angle, and that angle will kind of open that up for possibility. Also, a lot of times you see it just by like the person who's getting the tattoo having really thin, soft skin, weak ass skin, as I like to call it. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of you probably have blowouts. You notice them most here on the inside of the thigh. It's just one of those things. Got really soft skin. So just to say that you went too deep, that doesn't really explain how a blowout happens, because there's a lot of different ways that it can.
either getting it like covered up, obviously, or you can actually get it lasered, and a couple sessions will actually remove the blowout. In like some bad circumstances, it won't. But ultimately, if your artist is giving blowouts, they probably shouldn't tattoo you. So.
I picked this one because he did a pretty good job of explaining what a blowout is and things to do if you do have a blowout, how you could help it, fix it, do whatever. One of the funny things about this topic is that my style of tattooing, traditional, which is my favorite, it always has been my favorite, is actually when you see probably the most amount of blowouts in this like really blue hazy kind of look. There's like different types of blowouts. Sometimes you'll see like if you're tattooing like some fine line stuff, and all of a sudden it goes like from really thin to like boop, back to thin. You're like, that's a blowout too. It's just a different kind of blowout. There's really two types. In traditional, you see mostly the blue haze type of blowout. And in fine line or any line work type of thing, you might see that like fat line type of blowout. Both are common. Both happen in each styles. It just really depends on what's happening. The one thing I will say, the people who almost never see blowouts are like black and gray realism dudes. They don't lay in line work. They mostly sculpt a tattoo with shading. And I think, I'm not sure exactly, but judging his tattoos, he probably doesn't see very many blowouts because he uses shading or light black and gray stuff. He might blow some people out. But if you are a traditional tatter, if you're a fine line artist, if you're like anyone who uses line work, which should be everyone except for those black and gray realism dudes, you'll see blowouts all the time. And as far as like in tattooing, every single tattooer I know has blown something out. So for you to be like, well, you shouldn't be tattooing if you're blowing it out, no, that's just unrealistic. No one would ever tattoo again if that was the case.
Please don't slap your tattoos. You can, and you will, cause a blowout. Run it under some cold water.
Okay, that is just false. Just completely false. That's advice from what I think is a tattooer. No. Slapping a tattoo doesn't cause blowouts. That is ridiculous. Blowouts are almost exclusively caused by the tattooer or because of your skin type. Like if you just got thin ass skin, expect to get tattoos to blow out on you. I've seen some tattooed people who like every single tattoo gets a blowout. I tattooed a kid recently who was super cool, but every tattoo he had on his arms blew out. I'm sure the tattoo I did on him blew out too. It's just the reality of it. But slapping a tattoo is not how you cause blowouts. Like I said, it's either going too deep, going at a weird angle, hanging up a needle, or your skin type, realistically. Slapping a tattoo's never caused anything other than like potential like running the risk of inflaming the tattoo, causing infection, things of that nature, but not blowing out. This is a beautiful, beautiful example of a blue haze blowout. God damn. Shit. That is amazing. And not in the good kind of way, just amazing in the fun kind of way. I feel really bad for the person who has it. A couple laser sessions on those blowouts will do the trick. But like I said, inside of the arm, that's where you're gonna see that happening a lot. Man, that's one of the worst blowouts I've seen. There's not really much to say about it. When you got it this bad, it's kind of a bummer. And the only real remedy, other than like getting some laser sessions on the damn thing, are to tattoo around it and hope you don't blow out 10 times worse. Wow. Yeah, that's just rough. I will say, I one time blew out a color, which was amazing. I never thought you could do it, but you can. And it was like I was tattooing a butt cheek or something like that, and I was doing this black silhouette of a fucking snake, something stupid, and I'm just like tattooing, and they were like, yeah, put a green eye in. And I was probably already annoyed with the client and already annoyed in the process. I remember there was a group of like 10 of them, and they were all like being rowdy and shitty. Yeah, and one of them was like, hey, why don't you put green in the eye? And like, dude, I dipped my machine in there and I was like, I'll give you fucking green. And I just smashed it in to the eye, and I have never seen a color blowout until that moment. And I like put it in and I just see like, and that's what like a lot of times as when we're tattooing, we can see this like blowout kind of happen. And it looks like you just catch all the veins and it's just like spiders. And it's really small, obviously, it's not like huge. It's really small, but you could just see all these like pieces of green kind of like creeping out like an octopus. And I was like, oh shit, I blew that eye out for sure. And then later down the line, I saw that dude and there was like a little green haze around that snake. He had a lot of tattoos. It was a party tattoo. I don't feel bad about it, but it was funny. I'm not sure, but that could potentially be a color blowout right on that blue haze on top of it. It also could just be the style of the tattoo, but it would make me laugh if it was a blowout. Hey guys, we just passed 5,000 subscribers. We're trying to make it to 10. Please like and subscribe this video to help support the channel. Appreciate you. So this is the type of blowout I absolutely dread and hate and makes me super bummed. Like I was saying, thin skin will cause a blowout. Doesn't matter how it was tattooed. As you get older, your skin will get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. Now, tattooing older folk, you run the risk of blowing stuff out because their skin is so thin. It's just like so barely there that like you run a little bit of a needle and you see it just like spider off. And you're going, oh, let me put a little less pressure on this. So you pull up and you like baby it a little bit more and you just still see it. You see it happening no matter what you're doing. You were like, I'm probably blowing this out. And then they come back and this is what you see. I want to say that on maybe some of my oldest clients, I've seen blowouts like this. Maybe, I don't know that I've seen it one this bad, but there you go. Like a forearm doesn't usually blow out. Pretty uncommon for a blowout on the forearm. Thank God, right? Like these are the most visible. But this is like a tattoo that is pretty common. Sometimes when I'm making these videos, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between what people who don't do tattoos and people who do tattoos see. And I know that like a lot of people, if they saw this tattoo, they would be like, oh, that's just a piece of shit. Like the person who did the tattoo should fucking quit, blah, 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 blah. And maybe my channel and channels that critique tattoos aren't doing a good job of explaining that like sometimes tattooing is not gonna give you the results you want. And this is one of those things that like a client sees, someone who doesn't do tattoos goes, oh my God, what an awful tattooer. When I see it, a tattoo artist, I go, oh man, that's a bummer for the tattooer. Because clearly that's a hard piece of skin to tattoo. Like just like looking at it, you could see that it's real thin and soft and on an older person. When I like look at it, I'm like, clearly those lines are crisp enough that the tattooer knew what they were doing enough, and the result is just bad. And that's just a bummer. And obviously I feel bad for the client, obviously. I'm not here to take away from that point. Like the tattooer doesn't have to live with it, obviously. But as a tattooer, I'm like, ooh, poor tattooer has to see that shit go on the internet and see it every day. I will give a quick story. I know of a guy who's an amazing tattooer, one of the best tattooers. All of you guys followed this tattooer, he's great. And he did a tattoo on the chest, and every single line blew out super gnarly, like so gnarly. Any other tattoo this dude does heals up perfectly and flawlessly, and there's no doubt about it. It's one of the best tattooers to do it. And even he had a tattoo that was so fucked. Anyone who saw it would be like, where did you get that done? Like in a fucking dumpster in Tijuana? Like, where did we get this tattoo? So it goes to show you guys, like, I know the results aren't exactly what you want to see, but I mean, that's part of tattooing. It's like, sometimes things just don't look that great, even if they were done well, which I think, like, just looking quick glance, this tattoo is pretty good. I have no idea what this one's about.
Okay, it's been about 2 months, I think, since I made that video and I got the tattoo removal. I was supposed to have a secondary check-in appointment where I would go, and then if they needed to touch up more, they could, on the 19th of June, aka today. I canceled that. Anyway, let's show you what it looks like, and you can see why I canceled it. So this is the inside of arm 1. The blowout really has not come back on this one. I mean, there's like a super faint, like, ghosting of it. But it wasn't worth it to me to go through the pain of that again to get rid of like barely a line. So I did not want to go back. This other arm was the problem child. I also want to warn that I have a fresh tattoo that's healing that's right next to it. So be mindful of that. But you can see here also is way better.
Okay, so this is a person who did laser the blowout. Look, dude, the results on blowout laser are actually really good. If you've been with me a while, if you've seen me talk about laser, I don't think it's super useful for the average tattoo. But apparently blowout, blue haze tattoos, dude, go get it lasered. I think it's working really well. I mean, and it makes sense because it's like the aftermath of a tattoo. So it's not like you tattooed right on the skin. It's underneath. It's like blown out and it's gone cruising through the skin. So get that shit lasered. I think it's really useful. This is a person who got it done once. They didn't even think they needed to go again. So that's pretty cool. Let's move on. Okay, I have seen this so many times. I've talked about it a few times. This is one of the dumbest things I've seen on the internet, and you see it like blowing up all the time. Whoever's posting them, they did a great job at finding something that's working on the internet, but a fucking dumb thing to do in real life. And this Anthony Fleming, my guy, I appreciate you. I love you. I don't know you at all, but I am so stoked that you did this experiment and then you showed the results. You're the best. Anthony Fleming, you're rad. He re-outlined the entire thing and then he tattooed like pale color bullshit. And then you could see that that looks very nice when it's fresh. In this thing, it looks amazing. Like the homeboy, I am so glad you did this. We're gonna see how shitty it healed. And I truly believe that Anthony Fleming was only doing this to experiment and make content out of it, which I appreciate, because a lot of times on the internet, you see this done for reals, for realsies. And it's not a good idea. Look at that. That looks like garbage. We're gonna pause it here so we can really appreciate how dumb that looks. Like you could still see the blue haze from the blown out letters, and it just looks like you put like makeup or something around it. And it also just kind of looks like you discolored I just hate everything about it. Like if this is it as a healed, it looks awful. I know that Anthony Fleming eventually covered this up with some beautiful flowers. If you know this guy, you like this guy, comment below. I don't know him personally, but he's my hero for making this video. Look at that, that looks like shit. And obviously he's a great tattooer because he did a really good job. Those lines look crisp. He saturated that like whitish brown really well, but it still looks like garbage. So if you come to me and you're like, hey, I have these blown out letters, will you re-tattoo it and then put white brown around it? I'm gonna just be like, no, I have a video showing why it's such a stupid idea. On to the next. That is a bad tattoo, a super bad blowout, fine line wannabe tattoo. I wish I had the size on this thing. I wish I could tell you exactly how big it is. It looks like a very dinky tattoo that should have been done bigger with the way that this person tattoos, because obviously they're not good at doing fine line tattoos. But that looks awful. You know, how much of this is a person's skin? I don't know. I have a ton of tattoos on my upper thighs. I have always had blowouts on those lines. So like, you know, I get bold ass tattoos. So no matter what, I'm sure they're putting like a 14 round shader into my legs. And almost always it looked like 18 round shaders or something huge, like massive. Like they heal so big and so gnarly. I have some lettering across my thigh that says that was done with like tight 7. And honestly, it looks like a 14 round shader. So like, be careful where you're getting tattoos. Whenever I'm tattooing someone's thighs, I always put that into consideration because I don't want their like tiny little tattoo to look like I just hammered it in. But this is a good example of a real, like the whole tattoo, line work, blowout. Not a blue haze, line work. Like this shit's gonna be on their bone. Like this stuff is gonna seep through to their soul. This tattoo is in there. Look, the tattoo doesn't look great. It's not a good tattoo. It's a mediocre tattoo. It's a fine tattoo. It's whatever tattoo. I know I say that every time, but it's really not. Like, there's nothing special about it. I don't see a tattoo that's gonna look like the healed version. That's for sure. Like, I just see a bad tattoo and then it gets like way bad of a tattoo. So, hey, tattoos, what are we gonna do with them? Here's another dude fixing a blowout. That's what I'm talking about, boys and girls. See that? See that? Someone's actually doing what we were making fun of earlier in real life. Look, that is a bad tattoo, even though it looks good at the moment, right? At the moment, we can all see that the lines look crisper, the black looks more saturated. Yay, it's a good tattoo for now. Give it 2 months and it's gonna look like shit, because we already saw what it looks like when you re-outline something and then put a white or a brown haze around it. It just doesn't do well. But one jabroni put it on the internet 5 years ago, and now other jabronis are trying it in real life. It drives me crazy. It drives me so crazy. And this is the total opposite. This is the opposite of a blowout, and that is a fallout. Now, this is one of the worst tattoos I've ever seen fall out. It is crazy to me that it occurred. Insane. Like that's the tattoo, and then that's what it becomes. I don't know how. I don't know how that occurred. It is crazy to me, but I'm gonna guess a few things. The first thing I'm gonna guess is whoever tattooed that is a bad tattooer, clearly. But I'm also gonna guess that my apprentice could accidentally make a tattoo stay way better than this one. It's crazy that this fell out. I have no idea what occurred here. I've been tattooing a long time. I've never seen something fall out this bad, but it makes me happy. Not for the client, obviously. It makes me happy because like this is the opposite, the exact opposite of a blowout tattoo. And I think it happens probably more often than you like to think. Maybe not as bad as this, but you see a lot of tattoos fading and falling out because they didn't put the tattoo deep enough. Or they like really babied the tattoo. I don't know how it happened. I really don't get it. I'm a traditional tat daddy dude, so line work has always been super important to me, and putting in good line work has always been like a key to my tattoo success. I'm glad whoever did finish the tattoo did a good job. You could tell at the end, it's a fine tattoo, it's a good tattoo. Luckily, there was enough there to make it happen. Wow, we saw a lot today, guys. We saw a lot of bad tattoos, a lot of blowouts, and if you're dealing with some blowout stuff, don't worry about it too much. I know that sounds kind of like I'm not supporting your guys' frustration around blowouts, but there's ways to fix it. Lasering or just tattooing around it. Right on. See you in a few days.